Profile files are used by PowerShell to allow us to create a script that should be run every time we start PowerShell. PowerShell supports several different profile file names, each one used by the different methods by which you can start PowerShell. PowerShell has a special variable called $profile, and in that variable is the name of the profile file that applies to the PowerShell process in which you are looking at the profile variable. To see what is in the variable, just like with the path variable, you can simply enter $, and the variable name, in this case profile. And we will see that if we had a profile file at C, users, Dennis, documents, Windows PowerShell, Microsoft.PowerShell.Profile.ps1, that would be a PowerShell script, it ends in ps1, that gets run whenever I start my PowerShell command window. If I were to do the same check in PowerShell ISE and try to print out the value of $profile, I would find that it has a slightly different file name, even though it is stored in the same folder. This allows me to have different startup scripts for the different kinds of PowerShell windows I might start. So be careful you're using the correct one. To see if your profile file already exists, you can of course use a Windows Explorer, or in the command window use change directory and list files to see what files are there. But PowerShell also gives us a command, test path, for checking to see if a file exists. And if we run test path and give it $profile as the argument to work on as the parameter, it will pull the path name from the profile variable and check to see if it exists. When I run it, it says false. That means there is no such file. So if I wanted to have a startup script, for example, to change my path variable, I would need to create that file. There are a number of different ways to create the file. On most versions of Windows, you can simply say Notepad and give it the name of a file, like the one that's in $profile. If the file doesn't exist, it may give you the option to create it. If not, you'll get a command window pop up that says you can't find that path, it doesn't exist. You can still create the file by putting the content in, which would be your commands to run. In my case, I'm going to modify my path to have the old path followed by the path to the folder that contains my PowerShell scripts that are in my cloned repository from GitHub. I can then save the file as and go to the appropriate location. If I can't remember the location, I can go back to my profile printout and see that it's in C, Users, Dennis, Documents, and looking for a folder called Windows PowerShell, which I don't have, so I will create that folder. Windows PowerShell, and in that folder, that this document, this file, should be saved with the name Microsoft.PowerShell_profile.ps1. If I leave the setting for file type as text, it will automatically put txt on, which I do not want. So I will choose all files, and I will create it as Microsoft.PowerShell_profile.ps1 and save the file. To confirm that it's there, I might go to my Windows Explorer, go to Documents, Windows PowerShell, and I should find the file there. While I'm here, I notice that the ps1 file extension is missing from the display. That doesn't mean it's missing from the file. It simply means it's not being displayed. In order to see my file extensions, I would need to go to the View button and check the box to show file name extensions. And now I can clearly see that this file is a ps1 or PowerShell script file. I'm done editing this file. I can quit my Notepad window. If I want to look at the file again, I can double-click the file. In Notepad, it will pop up and I can see my file contents. I could, of course, also go to ISE and edit this file in an Editing tab in ISE. Any way to create files and edit them works just fine for this. Just make sure it's saving plain text, not formatted text like from a tool like Word. Now that PowerShell profile exists, when I start new PowerShell command windows, that script should run and change my path. So if I make a new window and look at my path variable, I should have my new path in there. It's missing, so I've probably put the name in wrong or something like that. If you wish to create the file directly on the command line, you can with the New Item command. The New Item command allows you to create things like files by saying New Item, -item type, file, -force, meaning if it doesn't exist, always create the file, and give it the name of the file you want to create, in this case the name in $profile, and it will go ahead and create that file. To see more information about profiles, have a look at the About Profiles Help document. As an exercise, make sure your Hello World PS1 is in your GitHub repository clone on your local disk. Create a profile file and install it with the correct name to extend your path to include your GitHub script directory for PowerShell, and make sure you can run helloworld.ps1 without having to type in the path name. When I just created my profile, it didn't seem to take effect on a new window. If I go ahead and start a new window to have a look, I will likely see that this behavior repeats itself. As I said, I likely put the file name in wrong without realizing it. To find out if the file exists, recall that we can use test path and get the file name from the profile variable, and it will tell me again false. In other words, I didn't create the profile file that I thought I did. So let's go ahead and take a look at the profile variable to see again the name of the path and file. Let's go back to our Windows Explorer and look in C, Users, Dennis, Documents, Windows PowerShell, and see if I correctly named my file or gave the correct directory name. So in the Documents folder, Windows PowerShell, that's correct. And the name of the file should be Microsoft.PowerShell_profile.ps1. And indeed, I have spelled it wrong. I have an extra O. So I will simply go ahead and correct that by changing the file name. Now it looks like it's the right name. And if I were to go ahead and again do a test path to make sure I have the right file, I can now see that it is true, and I do have a PowerShell profile file. And if I make a new PowerShell window, I should find that if I look at my path, it does now include my comp2101 folder inside my GitHub local clone so that I can create scripts and run them every time I start a new PowerShell window without changing my path manually. This concludes the lectures for the first lesson on PowerShell scripting. You should perform the exercises in the videos and be prepared to write the quiz in the next class covering these topics.